when I was in 5th grade, I had a chow. He was a green chow. His name was Thunder. He had a pointy grin. I maxed that chow stats to 999 with the animal trick, and I don't know how I got a stamina to 99. Sorry, 99, not 999. But I did. So, he's a dark power type, and I grinded his stats up, and then I left him alone. I left him alone because I was like, whatever, level up, done. And then he went into a cocoon after a long time. And then the cocoon was gray. And I didn't know at the time. I thought that a cocoon meant reincarnation, guaranteed. And then he went in the cocoon and I popped off. This was the morning before school in 5th grade. And then the cocoon disappeared and my chow was gone. And I cried. He died. I learned later that gray cocoon means you didn't love them enough. And they die. I was fucked up, bro. I was like 11 or 10. I stopped doing anything with the chow because I maxed his stats. I didn't interact with him. I just left him alone. And it turns out the love disappeared. He died. Crazy how that do. All right. Sorry, I have water. Welcome back to more reading. We have more to read. We might be able to get through the rest of the entries. We will see. No rush. I'm just gonna go. Let's start. Price of Life. Komachi's theme song. To my mind, Komachi is a cool and stylish character, so I went along with a song that get you dancing. And along the way, the original vibes vanished. Still dig the intro, though. The title is just the name of her spell card, no twist. Ibiza made his own version of this arrangement, and I often play that version on piano, so it holds a special place in my heart. Alright. So we're on Satori. The girl even vengeful spirits fear, capable of reading hearts, subterranean animism. The owner of the Palace of the Earth Spirits, and the yokai who manages the ruins of Blazing Hell. Both her name and classification are Satori. She can read people's minds via her third eye. In subterranean animism, she appears before the player before they enter the palace, or after they enter the Palace of Earth Spirits, and question their intentions. More accurately, she read their mind without their permission. While she is the palace's owner, she was completely unrelated to the incident that occurs in the game, and so she had no agency. It's thought that Satori used to be one of the Satori yokai who lived on Yokai Mountain. Hated for her mind-reading ability, she left the surface and became the Palace of Earth Spirits owner so she could put the ability to good use. People in the underworld dislike her too, however. Suika even calls her the most hated person there. However, she's also described as a good person, having a meek personality and a gentle demeanor. It is true that when Rainbow suddenly showed up on her doorstep, Satori greeted her politely and tried to make tea for her, then helped her find out the truth behind the incident. In other words, as long as she's not reading minds, she's a good person. That may make one thing she can just keep what the other person is thinking to herself, but perhaps actually talking about what she read in their mind is part of what makes a Satori. Regarding the specifics of Satori's mind reading, it seems to allow her to constantly pick up surface thoughts from others around her. The effective distance is unknown, but in subterranean animism, she couldn't read the mind of any support characters who were on the surface. And because of the huge sacrifice Koishi had to make to seal off her ability, it's likely Satori can't simply turn it off or on. As a yokai specializing in mental areas, her power is troublesome. Support characters overrate her because of this, with Alice certain they couldn't beat her and Suika suggesting that a prolonged fight would end poorly. And while Koishi's nature is slightly different, in Hopeless Masquerade, Mamizo, assuming Koishi can read minds, says it would be pretty hard to transform into her. Satori doesn't seem to like she'd be strong in a brawl or a magic battle, but her power as a yokai is undeniable. Because of her ability, Satori is well liked by animals who can't speak, which has led the Palace of Earth Spirits to become a home for many pets. She eventually accumulated too many pets, though, so she assigned them various tasks to lighten her workload. She assigned one of them as the sole manager of the ruins of Blazing Hell, which was initially her personal responsibility. It's clear she has her pets do what they individually best at, but then she began offloading her task of managing her pets to her other pets. Now she's more like a company manager. That was why she didn't know about the incident in Subterranean Animism until the player characters came along. Satori trusts her pets completely, which is why she assigns them important tasks. She thinks they're all loyal to her and that they won't do anything bad. This may sound a little irresponsible on the whole, but when you look at how she got all the pets to begin with, you can see that she wasn't acquiring pets just to give them work. She gave them work because she had too many. Animals don't hate her, which is why Satori loves them and kept on getting more, which gives the players something to consider about her mental state. Are you calling her a cat lady? You better watch your fucking mouth! Satori almost never leaves the Palace of Earth Spirits, but Symposium of Post-Mysticism goes further, suggesting she seldom leaves her room, where she reads and writes books. Her lifestyle is similar to Pachuli's, but the things Satori reads and writes are apparently stories, more in line with hobbies than anything else. Aki also mentions that some of Satori's stories may already be in circulation as books of an unknown author, because she has virtually no interaction with the outside. It's possible she's self-publishing these books in secret. In Danmaku battles, her tactics are predicated on imitating patterns in her opponent's minds. As mentioned before, Satori can only read surface-level thoughts with her ability. But the Grimoire Marissa mentions that she uses a kind of hypnosis to read an opponent's trauma. In Subterranean Animism, she delivers attacks based on the Danmaku, the support characters, and a double spoiler, her Danmaku is more reminiscent of the actual player's trauma than of the character they're controlling. Additionally, as of August 2016, she has never recalled a spell card that the character who would have confronted it would have had no possibility of seeing. As of August 2016, she has never recalled a spell card that a character would have confronted it would have what the fuck am I reading? What am I reading? She has never recalled a spell card that the character who would have confronted it would have had no possibility of seeing. Okay, so what it's saying is she's never recalled a spell card that a character that she's fighting hasn't seen before. So that, like, when Satori calls Yukari spell cards, she calls Insect's Nest from the fighting games, Double Black Death Butterfly, and Boap. I don't remember isn't Boap from, wait. Where is Boap? Boap is in the Phantasm stage, right? I'm not crazy. Because I remember Boap in Shoot the Bullet, which is Aya, not Reimu. Boap is 9.5. Yeah, but Reimu didn't fight Boap, right? If Boap originated in 9.5, but Reimu fights Yukari, she does see Black Death Butterfly, and the fighting games you can assume she uses Insect Nest, but Aya should be the only person who's seen Boap. Right? Unless Boap is a spell card in a fighting game as well. In which case it had to be in Scarlet Weather Rhapsody. Regarding her Shoot the Bullet, spells and Shoot the Bullet that originate from one Yukari and Alice use, it's possible that Reimu and Marissa saw them at point off screen. And as for Kinkakuji, Hatate comments that she saw it in one of Aya's newspapers. Alright, well, there you go. There you go. So we're guessing. We're guessing. We're using I think. It's possible. It might be true. Okay. From this, we can speculate that she can't use Danmaku recalled in the past with the same level of mastery. In Fantasy Maiden, where Satori first appeared in the Mystic Arc. Well, actually, I mentioned this in a video I made about one fact of every character. But Grimoire Marissa states that Satori has to read your mind. She has to read your mind to see, your trauma, and she uses her hypnosis spell card because it allows her to dig deeper into your mind and dig stuff out. But obviously, she doesn't do that in Shoot the Bullet. Double Spoiler. But in Double Spoiler, she uses Vague Recollection of Kinkakuji. So that means that she called out a very surface level thought from Aya and Hatate from a spell card they saw, but she didn't dig deep into their psyche because she didn't get to set up her hypnosis like she does for Reimu and Marissa, where the spell cards are a lot clearer, albeit weaker. But even the fact that it's called Vague Recollection of Kinkakuji, because Hatate's comments said that she saw it in a newspaper of Aya, and Aya actually saw it herself, So she doesn't need the hypnotism to recollect, but it helps her recollect clearer. There, she tormented Marissa, but in the Eternity arc, she meets with a variety of incidents surrounding Koichi, and as a result, her worrisome guardian side is emphasized as she worries about how to handle the Koichi issue and is anxious about what her pets are doing. That problem carried over into the final arc, where its resolution was the climax of the first half. That resolution was the impetus of the party for the party to unite into an even stronger whole. Your mind is like an open book to me with my third eye. Does she have a smug face? Babagoo. Fantasy Judgment, 70 years later. The theme of Lady Eiki, the supreme judge of paradise and Komachi's scary boss. The back half of the game is a real musical feast, facing so many heavy hitters one after another. That's true. The intro in particular is one of the most heavy and strangely serious Ibiza tracks on the whole project, I think. Lady Eiki's is one of my personal favorite characters, and I fantasize about her acting like a normal girl on her days off. Cute. Am I wrong? Well, I guess someone like me would just get sentenced to an immediate public execution. Lol. Lol. Shanghai! The name of one of Alice's dolls. It comes from a spell card she uses as a perfect cherry blossom, referencing Shanghai dolls. Since there were other spells with similar names at the time, people were unsure whether that referred to the doll's name, singular or plural, or the spell's name. However, a Shanghai doll appeared as a familiar and imperishable knight, immediately catapulting her into the spotlight as the doll everyone knows Alice for. Still, Alice never calls her by that name during the game, so details are still unknown. Derivative Works attach all kinds of settings to this character, if you can call her that. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Shanghai is essentially one of Alice's favorite dolls, and Alice refers to her frequently in conversations. Shanghai also serves as one of her weapons. Shanghai! That's her. Silent Autumn Breeze. The theme of Shizuha, Elder Aki's sister. While the overall feel is mellow, and keeping with being a battle theme, the first half is like a delightful dance with the fall leaves, while the second half is a more subdued and refined acoustic arrangement. Personally, I want you to listen to the pre-chorus of the original, where the song is at its saddest. You should be able to hear the sound of falling leaves rustling in the wind. Mauve had many beautiful songs and scenes in general, so I was really able to spread my wings creatively speaking. Hope you enjoy the music alongside the beautiful background drawn by Kenny. We put in a lot of work on the battle cut-ins for this version of the game, so you'll get to see lots of cute expressions, and Aki's sisters are especially good. Stinky. The god of Makai, who appeared in the PC-98 game Mystic Square, the final boss of said game after the protagonist visited Makai. She attempted to drive back the surface. It is said that she created all of Makai, so she is, in essence, its god. Shinki is one of the most well-known of the characters from older games, and she's still beloved by fans. Undefined Fantastic Object ended up having a big connection to Shinki as well. With the stage set in a section of Makai where Byakuren was sealed, Byakuren also uses Danmaku very similar to Shinki's. Its name is even Great Magic Devil Recitation, where the word devil actually refers to the goddess of Makai herself. Because she's Makai's creator, Derivative Works frequently have her and Alice, who comes from Makai, as mother and daughter. In Japanese, Shinki usually calls her Alice-chan, showing a much less formal side to her. While this partly comes from her own natural broad-mindedness, it also likely comes from how she uses chan suffix for Yumeko and Mystic Square too. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, her existence was implied since the beginning as the one sending Alice letters. As Makai's god, she treats all its living denizens with compassion and mercy. This is more out of love than out of duty, and she feels very strongly about maintaining peace in Makai. On the other hand, when no crises are happening, she's extremely laid back and loses her godlike dignity. She's Alice and Yumeko's mother, and she acts like it towards them. That's right, I am a god. Everything in Makai is my creation. Pouty. Where's her anger? Where's her anger vein? Her throbby. Heated Harvest Festival. The sound of a bright and bustling harvest festival, accompanied by a bunch of mysterious old men shouting. It's the theme of Lady Minariko Aki. According to Kobu, she's the clown of autumn. And apparently clowns need conga and bongo beats, or so I'm told. It's a stupidly upbeat song, so listening to it on loop, it's sure to put you in a goofy mood. She's a god who will teach you the terrifying power of vegetables with her harvest skill. She and her sister have been working on their combo attacks, it seems. Oh. Ha! Shiro. A strange Kadama that appeared before Marissa when she went to resolve the Scarlet Mist incident. While it seemed to understand language, its identity is unknown. Marissa treats it pretty terribly as a pet, but for some reason it makes no moves to run away. It seems to have some connection with the odd dreams Marissa's been having. Shiro's real identity is Miko, a Sanbando original character. For more details, see Miko's entry. Great. Ina! The title is based on a merry-go-round. I put in some effort into picking the right instruments to capture that gothic Lolita style. That gap between her kind personality and ominous nature is wonderful, and her battle lines are cool too. Her sound effects are pretty ominous too. I think a game with as many characters as this is best off trying to find ways to differentiate them like that. Shizua. Symbol of loneliness and demise. Okay, nice title. Capable of controlling the turning of leaves. One of the Yayos no Kami, along with her sister Minariko, she presides over Gensokyo's autumn season. In Mountain of Faith, she appeared as the mid-boss of Stage 1, but you couldn't see her spell card or character artwork unless you were playing on hard difficulty or above. She also didn't have any dialogue with the main characters. The god of the red and gold leaves of autumn, her hair ornament and skirt hem design sport an autumn leaf motif. Her profile notes her lack of combat ability, and being a Stage 1 mid-boss to begin with, she comes across as a weak character despite her divinity. However, her ability is that she presides over autumn leaves. This apparently isn't just a control over the leaves themselves, but a total domination over the greater phenomenon. In that sense, her capabilities are indeed fitting the title god. In addition, while the Aki sisters preside over autumn against Sokyo, it's interesting to compare this to the view of the four seasons that Yukari talked about in the first purple scented flowers in 60 years, part of seasonal dream vision. That's a deep cut. Wow. Okay. So if you don't know what that is, Seasonal Dream Vision, I believe, is the second quote-unquote official Toho work ever released. It was released after Curiosities of Lotus Asia. However, it's a compilation of fan works. However, Zun did a little short story for it at the end, which is what this is talking about. And it's a little first-person story about Yukari going around to talk to different humans against Sokyo, Reibu, Marissa, Sakuya, and Yomu, to remember what the significance of 60 years is. It's a bit of a precursor story to Toho 9. But yeah, Zun wrote it, it's official, and it's just kind of in the back of this book. So if you've never seen it before, I wouldn't blame you, but it exists, and it's really old. One of the oldest written stories that as official. Kari describes autumn as representative of achievements, the literal and metaphorical fruits of one's labor and decline. One can think of autumn leaves as the first step in the life cycle of dead leaves on the ground, and they correspond to the decline Yukari mentions. In contrast, Minariko's bountiful harvest would be the achievements, in and of themselves, making the Aki sisters together a symbol of autumn's dual-sided nature. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Shizuha first appeared in the Mystic Arc, where she joined the party. She is a generally sensible person, acting alongside others like Kane and Alice as someone who has her head on straight. Her insight and cool-headedness makes sense for a god of something representing quiet, austere beauty. Austere beauty. Heh. She's got pretty good facial expressions for somebody who's cool-headed. A Certain Misfortune Goddess's Song. Pain Flow special theme song. I like Dark Road so much that I requested to use it somewhere in game, so they let me make this special attack theme. I'm a big fan of Moth's soundtrack, so I wanted to include as much in our game as possible. As music tracks go, I tried to differentiate it from Misery Go Around by emphasizing the more tangible parts of a Misfortune Garb. The part where it transitions the triplets part away through is a bit unique to touch. I don't know what that means. Show. Avatar of Bishamoten. Look at that scroll bar. Capable of gathering treasures. Undefined fantastic object. A tiger yokai who shares the same purpose as Byakuren. Once Bishamoten's representative at Byakuren's temple, she embarked on a mission to release Byakuren's seal, along with Murasa and the others who had revived from the underworld. When people began seeing them, so too began the story of Undefined Fantastic Object. During its stage 5, she confronts Reimu and the others upon their arrival in Makai. She has a unique history for her yokai in that she served as a representative of Bishamoten, while she's positioned as one of Byakuren's followers. She is publicly treated as an object of Byakuren's faith, making the relationship more complicated than just a leader-follower one. Byakuren was the one to suggest doing things that way. She was faithful to Bishamoten, but Bishamoten was very busy, and yokai had to keep their distance from the temple. To resolve the matter, she welcomed the yokai Sho in as Bishamoten's representative. The yokai living near the temple at the time trusted Sho implicitly. This, along with her good character, was why Byakuren chose her. Her excellent work in the position also seemed to have led to being considered exceptionally talented. Bishamoten sent Nazarin to keep a close watch on Sho, but one could say that in the end, such concern was unwarranted. Because Sho was keeping her yokai identity a secret, she was unable to act when Byakuren was sealed away, though she still carried out her Bishamoten-related duties at the temple. However, she harbored great regret for being unable to help. When the seal on Murasa and the others was broken, Sho taught them how to release Byakuren's seal and put every ounce of effort into helping them revive her. While it isn't clear what sort of life she led while Byakuren and the others were still sealed away, we do know that she lost a precious treasure during that time, the Jewel Pagoda. Since it was a necessary component in unsealing Byakuren, once Sho joined forces with Murasa's group, she instructed Nazarin to seek it out. She must have felt pretty guilty about it too, because she seemed to have kept it a secret from the others. That's true. Nazarin mentions that, actually. I think she mentions it when you run into her in Stage 5, where she's or it's either Stage 5 when you bump into her, or when you're talking to her in Stage 1. Obviously, it's one of those two. But she mentions that, she makes an offhand remark about the pagoda and how she didn't want to tell anybody that she lost it. When Reimu brought the pieces of the flying granary, Sho proudly declared that she'd been waiting for her. However, she'd only just recovered the Jewel Pagoda at the time. Had Reimu and the others arrived a bit sooner, then the pieces in their possession wouldn't have mattered. Without the pagoda, Byakuren couldn't be revived, and Murasa's group would learn that she'd lost it. This is likely why many derivative works depict Sho as hardworking and talented, do they? But also absent-minded when push comes to shove, when she becomes clumsy and prone to failure. See, that seems more in line. Because Myoden Temple's yokai have all entered the Buddhist priesthood, they tend to be friendlier towards humans than most yokai, but none of them is more apparent than for Sho. Is it apparent? Because that would imply she has screen time. When Murasa expressed her desire to help break Byakuren's seal, Sho called her a comrade and promised to grant her one of the granary's treasures. When Sanai attempted to steal the pagoda, Sho told her she'd gladly give it away once the seal was undone. She actually just gave Sanai the pagoda right after, and Sanai undid the seal instead. Wait, is that what happens? Wait a minute. Perhaps friendly isn't so much the right word as credulous. Is that what happens in Sanai's route? Sanai beats Sho, takes the pagoda, and frees Byakuren anyway? That completely ruins the fucking... There's no way. There's no way, bro. Waiting 1,000 years. Here, you do it. Here, Green Bean, you go fucking do it. No. You don't just hand that fucking responsibility off to John Green Bean, alright? You can't do that. After the events of Undefined Fantastic Object, she began living at Myoden Temple. It seems she had no reason to lie to nearby humans about her identity at that point, so Symposium of Post-Mysticism speaks candidly on the history presented above. Aki writes that she is the next most important monk at the temple next to Byakuren, which is likely how most people currently perceive her in Gensokyo. I thought it was... Well, I mean, Aki's writing it. But I thought Sho is the one who receives most, because Byakuren obviously is Byakuren, but Sho is the, she's the avatar of the god of fortune. Because Bishamoten was a god of war originally, but he pivoted to being a god of fortune. So humans would like her more just by that alone. But I mean, again, it's Aku writing it, so take it with a grain of Aku. Last but not least, her ability is an extremely enviable one. She can gather treasures and riches with it. It's unclear how she goes about doing this, but it synergizes perfectly with the Jewel Pagoda, which she uses the shine of precious gems as a power source. It is also unclear whether her ability is a result of just being a tiger yokai or something she received as Bishamoten's representative. It's never explicitly stated. Aki writes in Symposium of Post-Mysticism that she's a yokai of treasures and riches, but she isn't very talented with classical martial arts. From that alone, one might surmise she was born as such a yokai. However, Bishamoten is one of the 7 gods of fortune, and the ability does work perfectly with the Jewel Pagoda. Thus, it's certainly possible that she received the power when she undertook the role of Bishamoten's representative. So she has no natural combat prowess, despite being a tiger, huh? Whether the struggles be greater or lesser, the yokai of Myoden Temple are always being pulled between their yokai instincts and Byakuren's teachings. But if they can find new purposes in life and change themselves, then perhaps this is a path they must tread to rid themselves of such struggle. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Sho first appeared before an undefined fantastic object in the timeline. At the midpoint of the Mystic Arc, she had kept her to herself at the temple, but by strange coincidence ended up helping resolve the spring snow incident. Affected by her experiences, she resolved to break the seal on Byakuren and the others, and in the Mystic Arc's ending, she managed to break the Pelican ship free of the surface. She became a collaborator to Reimu's group after that, but when she wasn't involved in an incident, she's searching for the Jewel Pagoda. During the final arc, she finally recovered the Jewel Pagoda and set out to rescue Hijiri. I am a representative of Bishamoten and one who has received fully of Hijiri's teachings. This is a really rare game where you get to use a lot of Sho. And Sho's really cool. Water to air. Super Yokai Warhead. Nitori! The theme of Nitori Kabashiro. The cheerful Kappa girl who's delectable in all sorts of ways. What the hell does that mean? The original song is a 3-beat tune with equal parts grace and emotion, but I went with a 4-beat rock tune to better match her attack animations. I threw in a splashing sound at the start of the piano accompaniment and lead it into the chorus to give it a refreshing watery feel, while the chorus itself is more clear and breezy to match the image of an aerial battle. I hope you'll find it a pleasant listen. Does Nitori have a New Game Plus theme? Well, I just noticed there, like, what the fuck? Why is there an empty spot? Star. Pouring starlight, capable of detecting movement, Eastern and Little Nature deity. One of the main characters of the Three Fairies manga series. Of the Three Fairies of Light, Star is the Fairy of Starlight. She always wears a quiet smile and nothing specifically stands out about her personality. Usually, she'll give Sunny advice on her ridiculous pranks and perform course correction, for better or worse. While she takes part in the pranks, she's a notable slacker when it comes to physical labor or other troublesome things. Star's ability is to detect nearby movement, essentially like a radar. Since she can detect flocks of small birds flying, its range and precision both seem significant. Despite seldom being shown directly helping with the prank, Star has used the ability to catch lots of rabbits. Nevertheless, it seems her ability isn't foolproof, as there have been instances in which none of the fairies' abilities work, such as on Raisin and Komachi. I don't remember when it didn't work on Komachi, but I do know the Raisin one. It's not clear exactly why they didn't work in these cases. Well, the theory, I think it even said in this game with Raisin, is because she manipulates wavelengths, and they're... Well, actually, that makes sense for Sunny and Luna, because they manipulate wavelengths for audio waves and, like, you know, solar waves or whatever the fuck. But how the fuck does the radar ability not... How can she not detect Raisin, right? Her radar ability is weird. Incidentally, Star stands out in the group for her cooking scenes. Does she? And especially during parties, she'll be the one in charge of food. Is she? I don't think I ever noticed that character trait. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Star appeared near the beginning of the Scarlet Arc with Sunny and Luna. She became an ally in the Mystic Arc, putting her radar ability to good use for the party. That jar is just about as big as 2 people, though it could fit just about 3 inside. What? Where did that line come from? Why are you putting people in jars? Oh, I get it, because you're a fairy, right? That's what fairies do, they go in jars. And then when you die, you heal me, right? A sworn friend's bond. Theme is the other form. No, this is her other one. That oh so famous theme from Mountain of Faith, accompanied by a powered up Nitori, makes its grand debut. Even so, I'll fight together with my precious friends. Yeah, I really enjoy working on this arrangement while fantasizing. I started with pleasant strings as the bass and layer it on heroic brass to create something beautiful. It's a small part, but the piano counter melody is my favorite bit. By the way, there's a special version of the intro that could only hear during the event where the song first plays. There's plenty of songs in Fantasy Maiden Wars that work like that, but you gotta keep that imagination alive. This one shows up in Marissa's route. Okay. That's probably the chapter where you fight her in the Mystic arc, huh? Suika. Tiny pandemonium, capable of manipulating density and sparseness. Immaterial missing power. An Oni who showed up against Sokyo. Well, it's been a long time since the Oni race vanished from against Sokyo. This one made her first appearance at Immaterially Missing Power. She's been living against Sokyo ever since. For more details on the Oni, please see their entry. In contrast to her youthful appearance, she's a powerful yokai and a friend of such influential people as Yukari. Suika wears her heart on her sleeve. She's bold, innocent, and doesn't sweat the small stuff. In the Shanghai Alice communication text file, she's described in simple terms, extremely childlike. And she certainly is, although in the game she makes many comments that pierce right to the true nature of her opponents. Her harshness with Alice is especially famous. Her sharp insight and unreserved incisiveness and the way she innocently uses them against people speaks to her childish personality even further. Suika left the other Oni and came by herself against Sokyo. That's just one reason the other Oni call her a weirdo, and she's certainly something of an irregular among them. While she says her main reason for causing the incident in Immaterial Missing Power was to enjoy parties, her true intent, as described in the aforementioned text file, was to rebuild the trust between the Oni and humans. With almost every Oni having given up on any sort of relationship with humans, this action shows a side of Suika that is normally obscured by her usual behavior. Nonetheless, her preferences and ideas are closer to those of an Oni as described in the backstory. It also shows Suika's dignity as an Oni herself when she harps on the differences between the Oni and other yokai. Her behavioral principles being so firmly rooted in her race is a trait not often seen among other powerful yokai. In that sense, you could call her both stubborn and narrow-minded. Since Suika spent time living in the underworld, she has a lot of pull among its yokai. She knows all about Satori, and she's seen Koichi before too. It's unclear whether Koichi knows Suika. During Immaterially Missing Power, Suika appears to be freeloading at Hakurei Shrine. Many derivative works and the like will show her using the shrine as her headquarters. However, Satori Animism's character typesetting text file states that nobody knows where she usually lives, so she seems to have no fixed residence. That said, with Hakurei Shrine being a frequent party spot, she is one of the yokai with a particularly strong connection to Reimu, so it seems clear she visits often. Her ability is to manipulate density and thickness. In other words, she can gather things into one place and scatter it at will. While the description itself is vague, the ability appears to be extremely versatile. In Immaterially Missing Power's Shanghai Alice Correspondence text file, it states that by collecting people's feelings, she can create phenomena akin to parties. And if she disperses herself, she can transform herself into mist. She also can make herself gigantic or make copies of herself. All applications are the same skill. In addition, she can make it look like she's splitting the sky open by breaking the canopy of the sky. She once split the moon by doing so, but whether or not that was her ability at work is unknown. Suika loves sake so much that she's described as almost never sober. During her appearances in the original games, she's pretty much always drunk. Even when she showed up in the third volume of Strange and Bright Nature Deity, she'd already thrown a party at Hakurei Shrine and was red in the face by the early morning came around. The gourd she always carries is called the Ibuki gourd. It uses a creature called a sake bug to create unlimited sake. There are even details about having to stop her to prevent her from spilling if dropped, and she's frequently seen swinging it around in battle. Suika has been called a small Oni on occasion, but when she lived on the mountain, she was known as one of the 4 devas of the mountain. Double spoiler notes her as being an elder, experienced individual too, so one can assume that she's quite powerful even among the Oni. Well, she is based on the Oni, right? Suten Doji. Small Oni moniker is probably just referring to her appearance rather than saying she's a small-time Oni. In Fantasy Manowar, Suika first appeared when she barged in on a party in the middle of the Mystic Arc. She lived against Sokyo ever since, but she doesn't use Hakurei Shrine as her base of operations, nor did she help the group investigate the Spring Snow incident. She and Yukari finally joined in the Eternity Arc, with her staying as a friend for the rest of the way. I command the Oni's pandemoniac forces, and where Oni gather, no humans or yokai may remain. One of those... Oh. The light in her eyes disappears sometimes. Actually, there's only like 2 portraits she has where the highlights in her eyes are there. Underwatch of the White Wolf. Theme of Momiji. Wait, theme of Momimi? Momomi? That's a good nickname. Theme of Momiji. How are you gonna spell her name wrong right next to you spelling the word out like by its syllable? Momomi is one of these characters with few lines in her original appearance. What do you mean few lines? You mean 0 lines, right? Leading to lots of different portrayals. In this game, she's a brave character with sword and shield in hand, so I elected to use heroic brass for this theme. Heroic theme song, parry, shield block, well-rounded performance, supportability, simple but cool animations. No matter how you look at her, she's a well-executed and well-rounded character. Maybe this is a hard ask, but I wish more characters could be like her. Between support attack, support defense, and utility skills, Momiji is a very useful unit. I recommend using her unique skill to customize her even further. Well, okay. The fighting games are different because the sprite artist, I'm pretty sure the sprite artist and the designer for the character art were different. They were different people, but you are right. There's some pretty notable differences in sprite work to in the fighting games to their actual colors. Remy's hair is so fucking dark blue in the games. Sunny milk. Shining sunlight, capable of refracting light, Eastern and little-natured deity. One of the main characters of the Three Fairies manga series. Of the Three Fairies of Light, Sunny is the Fairy of Sunlight. With her extremely bright and energetic personality, Sunny is essentially the leader of the Three Fairies. Kicking off stories by suggesting no good pranks is her bread and butter. Her cheerfulness knows no bounds, but she's also a good conversationalist, and she frequently ends up doing all the talking for the group. Sunny's ability is to fool people's eyes by controlling and refracting refractions of light, and in the Three Fairies manga, she mainly uses it to hide herself behind said refractions and disappear. She has an excellent level of control over her ability. She can even mess around right in front of Reimu, and the Shrine Maiden will be none the wiser. However, it has limits. If she uses it while it's raining, the rain seems to come down all twisted. She understands that well enough, and sometimes she'll also decide not to use it in buildings either. Separate from that, though, her ability doesn't need to work against certain people like Komachi and Raisin. The light Sunny can refract extends to light bullets too, and she once reflected Yukari's light bullets. And as her name Sunny would imply, she seems to have a strong link to the sun's light. Depictions of her being overjoyed to experience sunlight are frequent. Perfect Memento in strict sense also says she seems to be able to recover more quickly from injuries by basking in the sun. Conversely, if she goes a long time without basking in sunlight, she loses some of her enthusiasm. I think everybody does that, actually. Despite being the sunlight fairy, she is the hardest time out of all the Three Fairies waking up in the morning. Every day at the time she gets moving, Star is already relaxing with a warm drink and Luna with a newspaper. She seems to enjoy going to sleep, which makes sense considering how often the word afternoon nap passes her lips. Still, she's a messy sleeper who has been shown kicking Luna sleeping next to her in her sleep. Other than that, she seems to like scary things and doesn't seem to like bitter things. Given her position as one of the main characters of the Three Fairies manga, a lot of her personal information is in broad daylight. Good one. Perfect Memento Success stresses that she'll run away as soon as she encounters anyone, but in the manga, she doesn't show that level of caution. In fact, she even acts tough to Yukari at one point. Well, she was defending her home for that. Maybe she can't do the same. Well, actually, no, that happened before they moved in. Maybe she can't do the same when it's a normal human in question. In Fantasy Manowar, Sunny first appeared in the Scarlet Arc. She is frequently the doer of misdeeds and the starter of stories, and despite the player punishing her as an enemy, she joined them during the Mystic Arc. She uses her ability for stealth missions, which may or may not actually help. We're gonna rock all against Tokyo at this next incident. When the dust settles, fairies are gonna be on top! Sunny is my favorite fairy. The Dashing Falling Fall. Rabies Bite theme song. To commemorate Momiji's determination during the rematch and her cool new animation, I made her this extra theme. It reflects that fiery passion of her special technique and the melancholy of her defeat in spite of it. By the way, that woo during the attack animation is my voice. I never thought I'd be recording myself howling. You did a pretty good job, actually, if that's your voice. Like, wow. Suwako. Highest of native gods, capable of creating kun. Master, Mountain of Faith. The other god worshipped at the Moria Shrine. Because of her role, she usually stays behind the scenes. Before coming against Sokyo, even Sanai, the Shrine Maiden, didn't properly grasp the reason for her being there. But when the players revisit the Moria Shrine during Mountain of Faith's extra stage, Suwako appears before them and engages them in a divine game. Currently, she's one of the 2 gods worshipped at the shrine, but originally she was a god unifying the Misaguji. Not only did she acquire faith, she even built a kingdom. But when Kaneko invaded her kingdom and defeated Suwako and took the country from her. Possibly because of their background, the 2 fight a lot, but not because they hate each other. In fact, they're friends. The character setting text file mentions that it's because their interests align. In reality, even after losing to Kaneko, Suwako continued to do the practical work of gaining faith. More details about that are available in the entry for the Moria Shrine. In contrast with Kaneko's open-minded dignity, Suwako comes across as innocent and cheerful while hiding a bit of cruelty. In Toho Hisotensoku in particular, she makes many frightening remarks with a smile on her face. She acquired her faith mainly because of the fear of the Misaguji, which were considered gods who would curse you. Perhaps being the one who unifies them, Suwako is possessed of similar traits. She didn't seem very concerned about that steady decline of faith in the outside world. She wasn't too attached to the idea of getting more, and even continuing to maintain the shrine. Such behavior rides close to the line of rejecting her own existence. In actuality, she was in a situation where she could say not many people even knew her name. In terms of her level of visibility as a god, she was on her last legs. But unlike Kaneko, she accepted it and whatever the future had in store. Because of it, you can feel the sorrow of declining gods with Suwako from a different perspective than with Kaneko. Still, circumstances seem to have changed slightly after she came against Sokyo. While on the Mountain of Faith, the mountain yokai didn't know much about her. In subterranean animism, she mentioned she went with Kaneko to the underworld in order to grant Oku power. Ever since, it seems she's been doing whatever strikes her fancy. Suwako thinks of her life against Sokyo as both one final game and a second life, and she shows optimism and positivity about that new life in a different way than Kaneko. Like how she showed up at Aante and Inaba of the moon and Inaba of the earth. Okay, alright. Okay. Now, dubious canonicity aside, that is a legendary panel. You know this panel, right? This is the panel where Tay and Raisin are on the roof, and Tay points over on the roof, and she's like, that one, get that one, Raisin, and Suwako is just standing there. And she looks like she's straight out of like fucking Azumanga Daioh or Oyotsuba. She's got a stupid smile on her face, and Raisin's like, alright, I got her, and then gets absolutely fucking rocked. Possibly as a result, most people seem to know that there are 2 gods in the Moria Shrine now. In fact, okay, I like the implication here. I like the implication of this line. As a result of her appearing in this non-canon, dubiously canon 4-coma work, more people became aware that there are 2 gods at the shrine. Not people playing the Mountain of Faith and getting to the extra stage. No. People reading this 4-coma. That's how people be learning about Suwako. That's funny. I don't think that's what that's meant to read as, but I'm reading it as that because that's funny. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Suwako's appearance began in the Scarlet Arc. She showed how quick to action she could be by contacting Reimu and the others as they were relaxing at the shrine. Oh right, I forgot. She popped up during the Reimu chapter. During the Mystic Arc, she joined Kaneko in her clash against the Allied forces. After making peace, she built a positive relationship with them. The Eternity Arc saw Suwako become a reliable ally. So I've been told. Where she stood at Kaneko's side as the other god who led the force. That's right, it's just a game with a god, which makes it a festival. Yeah, Suwako is an interesting character because a lot of the fandom kind of associated with her is, you know, funny frog, kero. But in actuality, she was kind of ready to die. Like Kaneko, I wouldn't say Kaneko was afraid to die, mind you, but Kaneko really wanted to do something because her existence was waning in the outside world. So she had a plan, and Suwako was just like, "It's whatever, bro. It's whatever." And then Kaneko came up with an idea, and Suwako was like, "Yeah, you know what? Sure, why not? Let's do it." So she wasn't stressed with it as much. She was ready to accept that she was going to disappear. And I think that's kind of a fascinating contrast to what people see her as, because people see her as funny frog. But she's quite an interesting character mentality-wise, even if she's not very well well explored. Hurricane, Whirlwind, Aya Shamemaru. Aya's theme song. I like how her theme comes right out of the gates with those lively trumpets and speedy drums. It feels just like Aya. Between her S rank and air and her ability to focus and unfocus at will, it's very easy for her to leverage her tremendous evasion to generally be chilling at a 0% chance to hit. On top of that, her top class movement makes her a pretty fun character to use. Who wrote this? Do you think the guy who wrote this played the game? Who wrote this garbage? Girl of the spear of neither perception nor non-perception. Yeah, that makes sense. Capable of manipulating the earth. Scarlet Rhapsody. A celestial living in heaven. She's the mastermind of the incident in Scarlet Rhapsody, as well as the game's final boss. She's also an extreme nuisance. Bored as she is with her life in heaven, she decides to cause the incident just to enjoy being with the humans and yokai of Gensokyo. The circumstances leading to her becoming a celestial cause people to call her delinquent. Her past is described in detail in Scarlet Rhapsody's bonus text file. We won't repeat it all here, but one sentence in particular sums it up. The priest her parents served was deified, and so her entire family was turned into celestials along with them. In slightly more detail, the entire Hinanai clan became celestials when a great person named Nai no Kami, who they worshipped, became a celestial. Tenshi was one of the particularly young members of the Hinanai at the time. Apparently her name before becoming a celestial was Chiko, meaning Earth Child, but she changed it to Tenshi afterwards, meaning Heavenly Child. So yeah, her name was Chiko, and then she became a celestial, and she's like, alright, my name is now Angel. Hence Tenshi. Great Chiko. The same text file also categorizes her a failed celestial, not even acknowledging her as a real celestial. As one can see from her backstory, it was only Nai no Kami who performed great deeds. Apparently, the entire Hinanai clan is called delinquent celestials in heaven. That said, no other members of the clan have appeared in the game, so there is no real depiction of this. She is described as sheltered, selfish, and enraptured. She's extremely self-centered and always looks down on others. It's certainly not a personality you'd expect from a celestial, but she was so bored with her life in heaven that she came to envy the humans in the village as well as the yokai. Despite her envy, though, she certainly made herself out to be the best thing ever when she did visit and meet humans and yokai. Nevertheless, she isn't actually just a snob. She has more intelligence and capacity than her title would entail. As stated before, her reason for causing the incident in Scarlet Rhapsody was to fight whoever who came to fix it. After that, however, she put the keystone of the Hakone Shrine, which she personally destroyed, to try and form a connection to the surface. She also drives anyone coming to heaven outside of the incident out, muttering about how easy it is when she's not pulling her punches. Because she caused the incident in accordance with Gensokyo philosophy that incidents are meant to be resolved in the end, she doesn't harbor a grudge about it. In fact, in Toho Heso Tensoku, she even worries over whether her earthquake was what caused the events in subterranean animism, so she actually seems pretty reasonable. I didn't know that part, actually. In spite of her selfish, arrogant side, she is certainly no fool. She just hates being bored, and her sheer vivacity seems somehow larger than life, making her easy to get along with. In the game, she can force temperaments to reveal themselves, wield keystones, and cause earthquakes. Not all of them are Tenshi's own powers, though. Her control over temperaments in particular comes from a tool called the Sword of Hiso, which she brought with her from heaven. Her mastery over keystones and earthquakes, however, comes straight from her. The bonus text file says she is able to exert control over the lands. Just as that would imply, she can bring about earthquakes and other disasters like sinkholes and landslides, and she appears to be able to do so remotely as long as the targeted area is within Gensokyo. The ability isn't given much of a close-up during the game, but it is an incredible one. She can also quell earthquakes. Said the ability to insert and remove keystones is unique in Gensokyo to the Hinanai clan. In addition, Tenshi is extremely sturdy and physically capable thanks to the effects of eating heaven's peaches. Sakuya's mentioned that her knives can't pierce the celestial is a famous one. In derivative works, Tenshi is essentially treated as a supreme masochist. This is probably because of something said during her confrontation with Alice in Scarlet Rhapsody. Alice essentially threatens to beat Tenshi to a pulp, to which Tenshi replies that she's been preparing for that exact thing. She says this because she set the incident up specifically to be resolved in the end, so it's not as though she actually likes getting beaten up. As an aside, Iku calls her eldest daughter. This is likely just out of respect for Tenshi being next in line of succession in the Hinanai clan. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Tenshi first appeared in the final arc. Before the incident, She came down from heaven to scout out the surface, but she ran into Rainbow's group and the entire quarrel immediately broke out. She was also made the very unusual move of warning them of the incident she was about to cause. She lives indecisively, caught between her idea that she should act like a celestial she's become and the knowledge that she could never be true to herself that way. In the game, she eventually comes to accept her own individuality after meeting all the other humans and yokai. It was a pretty straight character development, though it wasn't particularly intentional. Celestials like to grace the surface and give advice once in a while, right? Unfortunately, it's all advice I definitely can't follow. I like Tenshi, although I don't like Tenshi very much prior to her appearance in Wildhorn Hermit. But that's just me. She's great in this game. Tenshi is at her peak when she is just a short little bastard. Black-Winged Wing God. Aya's Tengu mode theme. The original track Yokai Mountain is often associated with Aya using illusionary dominance. This game's version of illusionary dominance is pretty wild too, so that's cool. Flying through the sky with a beautiful autumn mountain on your back really captures the Mountain of Faith experience. Her default theme is Wind God Girl, but go ahead and switch it up every now and then. You might even find using Hatate's theme enjoyable. How fucking dare you assume that? Hey! White Rabbit of Good Fortune, capable of bestowing good luck to humans. Imperishable Knight. The yokai rabbit who leads the Earth Rabbits and mostly lives in Ayante. She first appeared in Imperishable Knight as a Stage 5 mid-boss where she had no dialogue or spell cards. However, she did not explode when defeated, and in spell practice mode she was given a spell card and a portrait cut-in, which gave her at least some presence. She was later playable in Phantasmagoria Flower View, where she finally spoke in a game for the first time. Her ability is to give luck to those she encounters. It is an unusually helpful ability, and for that reason she's supposedly popular among humans. However, people don't usually run into her since she lives in the Bamboo Forest of the Lost. And if you meet her there, you end up blowing through all the good luck she gives you just by escaping safely. Because of that, it's not really clear what kind of good fortune she'd give you if you encountered her outside the forest. Fortune is a vague concept to begin with, so the true effects of her ability are hazy. One thing we have to go by is when she tells Misty and POFE that she'd never share her good luck with some sparrow. If we take those words at face value, it would mean that she can grant good fortune to non-humans as well, and that she can control over who she gives it to. But since it's just a post-battle quote, and considering this is Tei, nothing's really clear. Tei is the only major resident of Ayante born on the surface. She lived in the Bamboo Forest of the Lost before Ayante was built, and she is already in an elder-like position leading the surface rabbits. After Kaguya and the others went into hiding, she paid a visit. She negotiated with them for knowledge and wisdom in exchange for keeping people away from Ayante. Ayante's denizens ultimately agreed and welcomed Tei into the fold. Because of their background, Tei isn't a servant to Kaguya and Eren. Their relationship seems to be one of equals, with Tei referring to Eren casually in Phantasmagoria Flower View, saying that one of her acquaintances is a master of medicine. Her actual position at Ayante is low, being subordinate to Raisin. One might say this relationship is in name only, though, considering how she doesn't always listen to Raisin and both of them speak casually to each other. What's noteworthy is this fact that even though Tei has been at Ayante longer, she ended up as Raisin's subordinate anyway. If you consider Raisin's lunar heritage part of her higher position, it might give some ideas about how Ayante's residents felt about things before the Eternal Night incident. Ayan's character setting text file describes her as someone with violent changes of mood. From what we see of her in POFE, she's not so much belligerent as she is antsy, loquacious, and moody. In the story, she also eloquently tried to con medicine out of her land, and later, upon realizing Eiki was a Yama, her attitude completely flip-flopped. She also interacted with others with a degree of shrewdness. Her love of lies and deception can't be left out when talking about Tei's personality, and upon reinspection, she truly is a master of her craft. All of her victory quotes in POFE give glimpses of how she lives her life, with her bringing very shady propositions to many other characters. That said, the dubious nature of her deception is always clear as day, so it doesn't feel like she's really trying to gain anything from deceiving others. One of her cons was detailed in Bohemian Archive in Japanese Red, which she said she collected money from an unspecified number of people under the guise of collecting donations. Since she appears to have granted the donators good fortune, though, one could defend her to an extent. It's less a donation and more like a purchase to that rate. The character setting text file also jokingly says that she was so careful with her health and lived such a long time that she eventually gained the power to change into a yokai, but she truly is one of the oldest individuals in Gensokyo. Perfect Memento Strict Sense mentions that she is in the same category of the long-lived yokai in Gensokyo, and she's even been around since the very first Gensokyo Chronicle. With no connection is ever explicitly made, some interpretations draw a direct line between Tei and the legendary hair of Inaba. If that's true, she'd be mythologically ancient. In fact, even Eren doesn't know how she made it through the spell of eternity and got into Aante when they all first met. She's very much shrouded in deep mystery. Nevertheless, it's not like she has some hidden power and authority accumulated over all her years. Years, not ears. Instead, she's demonstratively Japan's oldest master of trickery as a rabbit appearing in many myths and legends. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Tei first appeared in the Eternity arc. She served as a stark contrast with Eren and Kaguya, being their servant, but also someone who could objectively observe the others at Aante. In fact, she doesn't change her fundamental way of life even after the Eternity arc. It makes her a consistent character in a way. Rabbits are noble creatures, you know. We once counted as many gods among our friends. The white hair of Inaba. Now bloom, the tattered word flower. The theme of Ai and Tate's double spoiler combo. Much like Rainbow and Marissa, rivals teaming up with some good stuff. However, we have lots of freedom in choosing songs for the Tengu, so I picked based on my desire to make something with the original, the ease is using it, and how much I liked it. Well, the results are what they are. This arranged sticks pretty close to the original. I employed instruments that are less speedy than usual, and are a cross of modern and old-fashioned. That retro-style bass really takes me back to the PCE era. Retrospective Kyoto is really good. Toyohime, Moon Princess connecting sea and mountains. This game is really good, yep. This game is really fucking good. And the fact that, well, the New Game Plus aspect adds even more to it is great. Although New Game Plus is a long ways away from me. A Lunarian living in the lunar capital with Yorihime Watatsuki's older sister. One of Eren's pupils from when she was still on the moon. While she didn't have any flashy moments like battle scenes in Silent Thunder and Blue, she was notable for having a debate directly with Yukari. Toyohime is bright and more free-spirited than Yorihime. Cage in Lunatic Runegate says that her job is to oversee the path to Earth and to instruct the emissary rabbits, meaning she doesn't have much to do. You got an extra space there. She seems to pop in on the Yorihime's training of the rabbits, but even then, she puts her free spiritedness on display, sneaking in little gifts and chatting instead of practicing. Seems to have earned her popularity among the rabbits. Zun himself makes note of her ability in the column in Symposium of Post-Mysticism. According to him, she has the ability to move anywhere she wants. She can link the proverbial mountains with the seas, that is, Gensokyo with the moon. From that context, while her ability would seem to be purely for moving around, there are many depictions of her swapping out space itself as well as targets not realizing they've even been warped. For her space-time ability, its scope and precision must be extremely advanced. She gained the ability through Eren's teachings, and it's implied that several others possess a similar ability. Because it isn't specifically geared towards combat, Toyohime brought 2 items from the moon for her confrontation with Yukari and Silent Thunder and Blue. One was a fan said to create winds that could purify an entire forest in an instant on a particle level. It's represented in her attack in this game too, which is pretty cool. While the other was the extremely sharp femto fiber, made of woven threads so fine as to be imperceptible. What does that mean? I don't know. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Toyohime only appeared in story scenes in the Eternity arc. She serves as one of the supporting characters in Silent Thunder and Blue part of the story that gets going around the middle. Her long-awaited recruitment came in the final arc. On the request of a yokai who sensed an anomaly in the dream world, she went down to Gensokyo. Such artless words. I suppose rabbits aren't known for their scholarship, though. Her long-awaited recruitment. Who was waiting? You? I wasn't waiting. Motherly Sea, one with the wind. The theme of Moria Shrine's Wind Priestess. After many entirely expected retakes ordered by director Sanban. I mean, I totally get it. You just can't compromise when it comes to your fave. And, well, it turned out pretty serious for an Ibiza arrange. But it ain't the same without the crazy part at the end. And, like, I hear you, but I think sometimes you gotta emphasize that seriousness. I hope I conveyed her cold seriousness. Right there. If you didn't think... If you thought that Sanai being the director head's favorite character was just, haha, look how much ability she has. No, it is, that's why she has it. She is the favorite child. Unzan. The Great Wheel, having guarded and been guarded, capable of changing shape and size at will. A Nudu who appeared in Stage 3 of Undefined Fantastic Object. A yokai called a Mikoshi Nudu. Nudo. His body is made of clouds. Unzan is a servant of Ichirin who surprised players with his ridiculous Danmaku. This is firing laser beams from his giant face and punching with fists many times larger than the player character. He is able to speak, but he has no lines in the original game, with Ichirin speaking for him. For details about his past, see Ichirin Kumoi's entry. Yuval's character setting describes Unzan as a stubborn, taciturn, fatherly type, but he has a good heart. He hates dishonesty and crookedness, and likes those who are honest and straightforward. In short, he has an old-fashioned personality. But even against Sokyo, the Mikoshi Nudo itself seems to be considered an old-fashioned yokai, with Aya giving a favorable impression of him in Double Spoiler, saying that whenever she meets an older yokai like him, she immediately feels a sense of camaraderie. Unzan can change his form and size, but he can't transform into other things. Symposium of Post-Mysticism explains it's because he can't change his own color. Everything else, though, like how big or small he can make himself, is how precisely he can change his form, is shrouded in mystery. The only possible hint is when Tate writes a Double Spoiler that Nudo look big, but their true selves are actually small. So, interesting about that. I think it's Wildhorn Hermit. There's a chapter where the Myodan Temple sees a big boom in business because they get a big Buddha statue. They get a big Buddha statue on display at their temple, and it's attracting a lot of visitors. And Reimu discovers that the big Buddha statue is actually Unzan shapeshifting, and she blackmails Byakuren to let her set up a shop or a stall really close to the statue, because other people weren't allowed to set up stalls near it because they would risk discovery. And the Kappa are kind of annoyed that Reimu has special privilege, but because Reimu found out the secret. So I think Reimu wanted to take him and use him for her own advertisement, but then she just kind of, she set up a stall close to it. In addition, as of spring 2013, he's the only male character to appear in a Toho Project game. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, he revived at the end of the Mystic Arc along with the Palaquin ship. As a rule, he always is with Ichirin, but he almost never voluntarily speaks, so the only time you see his face is in battle scenes. The wind is ever at my back. The results of me and Sanban's burning passions. It's the theme of Sanai's Summon Take Minakata. Stuck in a corner, Sanai struggles desperately. A metal arrangement with an emphasis on the accompaniment. It's an unusually intense track coming from me. That said, there's someone who wants to talk about the song far more than me, so I'll leave the comments to him. So come on down, Sambon. Here I am, stumbling out on stage as requested. You can call me Sanban. If you're not familiar with the whole 200 Yojana business, please refer to the 7th game in the Toho Project. Sanai is a character I'm particularly attached to, so Ibiza and I had many heated discussions during the song's production. I talked at length about how Sanai ought to be portrayed and entrusted the rest to him, but it resulted in one of my favorite songs. Regarding the song's tone, I asked him to be mindful that Sanai has only just recently passed into fantasy, a sense of uneasiness slowly creeping to the surface, her resolute spirit unwavering even after coming against Sokyo. Wavering between the two, she gives her all to do what she must for the sake of those who are most important to her. As my imagination ran wild, I decided that the weight upon that priestess's shoulder must come from this sort of background. So I had a real rough time during the first half of the Mystic chapter, but she seems to have regained her natural cheerfulness since then. On the other hand, the song is still Summon Take Minakata's theme. The simplest explanation is just that it's a freaking cool song and I want to keep hearing it, but I also think that at her core, Sanai hasn't really changed. You gotta hand it to her. She's still trying to fit in despite it all. Well, that was a bit of a wall of text, but I hope I keep tracing your path throughout this game. So by all means, look forward to the next time. Utso. Utso, with Yadagarasu's power restrained. At Sanbando, we call her White Oku, or White Utso. This is what she turns into when she uses too much of Yadagarasu's power. All of her things influenced by that power, such as her red eye and third leg, are gone. But she's taken them off after a long day, so she didn't give them up. Okay. That doesn't loop properly. In the Eternity arc, this is the form Utsu took before receiving Yadagarasu's power. She didn't appear in this kind of form in the original games. Her design and role were based heavily on the original ideas from Sanbando herself. Yeah, that doesn't loop properly. Well, that's... okay. Brand new win. Surprise! It's Sanai's third theme. Having turned over a new leaf, or perhaps just discarding her common sense, I represented this fresh-faced Sanai with twinkling synthesizers. I think it turned out a pretty fun ally theme. In general, just cast Miracle and use Summon Takumi Takata on the boss. True! That is exactly what I did! Weird how she keeps winding up as my highest level unit, right? True! You cast Miracle, you slap the boss, and you gain mega levels! Real Utsu. Scorching, troublesome, divine flame, capable of manipulating nuclear fusion. Subterranean animism. One of Satori Komeji's pets living in the Palace of Earth Spirits, originally a normal hell crow. The Moria Shrine Gods made her into a vessel of her Yadagarasu's power. While she is in the Stage 6 boss, the final boss, Subterranean Animism, she had nothing to do with the vengeful spirits that led the players to descending to the underworld. And depending on your route, she'll say things that don't seem to make much sense. The role Satori gave her is to oversee the ruins of Blazing Hell. The character settings text file specifically says that her job is to open the courtyard skylight if the flames get even a little too strong, and to toss on the corpses Rin brings her if they begin to wane. In other words, she's responsible for adjusting the power of the flame, making for a simple job consisting of the same tasks every day. However, it's a good fit for her, and she seems personally happy with it. But everything changes when she's given Yadagarasu's power by the Moria Shrine God trying to bring out an industrial revolution against Sokyo. Yadagarasu is a crow personifying the sun, and so Utsu gained the power of the sun. In other words, the ability to control nuclear fusion. She enjoys using this incredible might, and it intoxicates her until, in the end, she decides she wants to rule the surface. That was the true beginning of the incident depicted in Subterranean Animism. In addition, Utsu using that power allowed the ruins of Blazing Hell to regain its heat, causing geysers to erupt on the surface. Because of this, the Seidensen, once sealed in the underworld, is set free, leading into the events of Undefined Fantastic Object. It's never explained exactly what her ability to control nuclear fusion entails, though she clearly uses the ridiculous amount of power in Danmaku battles too. Most of the characters in the games don't understand nuclear fusion anyway, while those that do don't seem to be making full use of it. The game also stresses her bad memory. A particularly famous example of this comes during Toyohime Tensoku when she says she can't tell Reimu and Sanai apart. She tends to completely forget what led to a Danmaku battle once it's over too. In fact, she'd already forgotten what God gave her the power in Subterranean Animism. Even the character setting text file makes a note of her small brain. However, this is not simply a jab at her personality, but an indication of how high Utsu's affinity is for the power of a god. Aki writes that in order to harbor a divine spirit within oneself, one must have no attachment to the self and the tolerance to accept anything. So it seems Utsu's innocent mind and purity primed her for harboring a god. I mean, Kaneko straight up says that. Suwako also makes a comment in Toyohime Tensoku that the yokai is so simple and honest that her nuclear power would only ever be used peacefully. It's not clear whether Utsu's plot to take over the surface was part of Moria God's plan or not. Either way, she seems to have abandoned the idea after the events of Subterranean Animism. When she visits the Hakurei Shrine, works at the underground geyser center built in the underworld, and gets called nicknamed Oku even by Aya. That said, she doesn't seem to move around in a very wide area, so Akio has no real acquaintanceship with it. For that reason, much of the information on her, such as her danger level, is simply listed as unknown. In addition, her outward appearance is very unusual. Players seeing her the first time are stunned, but even the character setting text file remarks that she stands out as a very conspicuous character. Particularly noteworthy is the cannon-like pole on her right arm, which is called her third leg. The reason for it is that Yadagarasu, the god inhabiting Utsu's body, has 3 legs, which has been reflected in her appearance. The bright red gemstone on her chest is also Yadagarasu's eye, called the Eye of Red. Regarding her eyes being red despite being a crow, Cajun Lunatic Runegate mentions that the personification of the sun... The sun? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? You got the wrong sun there, my guy. Has 3 legs and red eyes. The fact that her Her character traits and backgrounds are so well reflected in her outward appearance as one of the charms of Toho Project's character designs. But Utsu's design is particularly on the nose, with a lot of elements that seem tacked on. But perhaps it is in itself an expression of Yatagarasu's power, having been given to her rather than having been born with it. Actually, she can remove the third leg if she wants. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Utsu first appeared before Yatagarasu came to inhabit her. We took on the challenge of depicting how she initially desired more power and how Kaneko and the others gave Yatagarasu to her. In the final arc, she boldly strode into battle, having mastered Yatagarasu's power. She confronted Miko as well, her mortal enemy. My ultimate nuclear fusion will consume bodies and minds, and ghosts, and fairies! It's the same set, but she probably has the despair ones. Yeah, these ones. The restless gods and the virtuous winds. Theme of Kaneko, the war god of Kyan. Her charisma comes at you from a different vector than Remilia's, in the form of a straight rocker range. I'm always hoping to remind people how they felt playing the original. So for songs that leave a big impression, like Big Boss themes, I try to stick close to the original. But well, you know how it goes. Sometimes the guitars just gotta go crazy. I say this level of nuance is just right for Fantasy Maiden Wars. Probably. Alright. Riguru. Boog of light, wriggling in the dark, capable of manipulating insects. Imperishable Night. A firefly yokai who appears in stage 1 of Imperishable Night. She blocked the player's way when they were out to resolve the incident and was treated rather roughly. Her appearance is described as no different from a human aside from the visible wings and antennae. Wriggle herself isn't notably strong for a yokai, but her ability to control Boog is extremely dangerous. Perfect Memento and Strict Sense warns of her ability to control all sorts of Boog at will. In particular, Devil Boog called... Okay, alright, listen. That's not the word you think it is, but that is an eggshell. That is an eggshell, alright? If I say that even remotely wrong, that's the end of me. That's the fucking end of me, alright? You're gonna have to read that one to yourself. Or harvest mites. Well, while harvest mites exist in reality, it's doubtful that they're especially dangerous compared to the other bugs she commands. It's possible this is meant in terms of their potential to spread infectious diseases. She doesn't seem to attack people blindly, though, and despite possessing an ability that she can pose a threat to humans as noted above, her danger level remains middling. Perfect Mental Strict Sense also introduces her as a yokai that grosses people out. More and more eyewitness reports are finding bugs coming out lately, while people blaming other bug issues on Wriggle. Aki writes that because humans don't try to exterminate fireflies, butterflies, and the like, they're more easily grow into yokai, implying that Wriggle herself was once just a firefly. Bohemian Archive of Japanese Red also says that she started a Boog messaging service with the aim of raising her status among Boog. Since it involves sending a swarm of Boog to someone at specified times, she probably can't use it for much other than mean pranks. As far as Wriggle's actions in the article are concerned, the venture didn't seem to have lasted long. An Oriental Strange Place. What is Oriental Strange Place, chat? I thought it was called Oriental Sacred Place. She had a stall open at the Hakurei Shrine for New Year's where guests could scoop Boog like goldfish. I don't remember that at all. What the fuck is Oriental Strange Place? What is that? It's not clear what kind of Boog are being scooped, but it was the middle of winter, which is probably a bad sign. In addition, she can make full use of her ability to control Boog during the Danmaku battle, and many of the spell cards involve noisy swarms of them. The Grimoire Marissa includes 3 such spells, calling them top class among Stage 1 bosses. The book places her third after Reimu and Rumia, and it points out how she uses fireflies as shooting stars, as well as categorizing her Danmaku as Boog type, underscoring the book's general diction. But Marissa generally doesn't have much good to say about her faux shooting stars, lambasting them and calling them gross. As an aside, for whatever reason, while every other character has their full name written in the book's table of contents, Wriggle just appears as Wriggle. Why is that? In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Wriggle first appeared in the Eternity arc. Her appearance came with an unfortunate timing, being the chapter where Yuka and Mima join as reinforcements, and right after Kaneko and Suwako join. She had an important role to play in explaining the relationship between the surface and the underworld, including trading opinions with Yamame during the subterranean animism part of the story. It's been a long time since I saw someone not excited after seeing an amazing Firefly. She is good. That's her. A god plays with their whole heart and soul. What's she doing interrupting a fight with the final boss? The theme of Suwako, the native god of Kuden. I was responsible for basically all the new arrangements during the MOF finale. The main reason was to give the stage a unified sound, but honestly I just like the original songs. Sorry to all you Kobu fans out there. Speaking of the originals, let's talk about that absolutely insane piano part. I got it in there, of course, but it was really hard to copy by ear. Also, since the song's motif is playing your heart out, I threw in lots of little details and parts where no one would notice. For example, the bass guitar part takes inspiration from frogs, gradually bobbing up and down. Or like the crazy organ part near the end was made to appear like Mizoguchi wiggling back and forth when you visualize the MIDI data. That second one especially, how's anyone gonna notice that, lol? Yamame. Bright web in a dark cave, capable of manipulating illness, mainly infectious disease, subterranean animism. A potato living in the underworld. Her ability is brutal, but she's lighthearted and easy to talk to. That personality led her to being introduced in the character setting text file as being popular among the underground yokai. On stage 1 of subterranean animism, she appeared before the Reimu. Okay, alright. Shit like that cracks me up. When you put the in front of something, she appeared before the Reimu. That's not funny, but it cracks me up. And the others, they set foot in the underworld and gave them a warm welcome. However, the main characters and their partners picked to fight with her instead. Despite her ability being easy to hate, Yamame behaves a lot like a surface dweller and doesn't have any particular grudges against them. In that way, she represents the current state of the underworld. In addition, the term Tsuchigumo, meaning Earth Spider, didn't originally refer to a yokai, but rather a disparaging term for local wealthy families. Huh. As time went on, it got turned to a yokai. The legend of the Tsuchigumo in the Tale of the Heiki feature a Minamoto no Yorimitsu, and particularly famous, and serves as the basis for no play. That's interesting, I didn't know that. The rabbit hole goes deep. In the Toa project, Yamame seemed to have a deep connection to the Yokai Mountain from when she was on the surface. Suika, Ai, and Tori all recognized Yamame as Tsuchigumo right away. Tori in particular apparently hates her for always making the river dirty. In addition, Hatate calls her a mere tool of the Oni, but details on this are unknown. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, she appeared with a fairly big shot personality. As a character representing the general character of the underworld yokai, her attitude was cold, as if to symbolize the rift that lay between the surface and the underworld. Near the end of the Eternity arc, she worked with the surface yokai, and now she travels there sometimes without much of a second thought. You sure talk to yourself a lot. You must want to see how strong the yokai bandits underground are. She has scary eyes. Ooh, scary. Dude, she's got 2 fucking modes. Like a completely different character when you change the eyes like that. Lightning Fish. Iku's theme song. The original song was pretty hard for me to arrange, but when I imagined her striking a fever pose with a serious face, I decided to follow my gut and go with a cool 4 on the floor beat. Between having to excel in her ability to support from a distance, she's truly a woman who can read the room. There was originally a note here about what the song's name means, but it was already in English, which I had to presume you can read. So... okay. I'm not sure what you're referring to, because I don't know what it looks like in Japanese. Yorihime, moon princess possessed by divine spirits. Capable of summoning the power of the god, silent sinner in blue. A lunarian living in the lunar capital. Toyohime Watatsuki's younger sister, one of Aiden's pupils when she was still on the moon. During the events of Silent Sinner Blue, her interception of Reimu's group as they arrived on the moon left a major impression. She is hardworking and earnest to a fault, a stark contrast to her older sister Toyohime. Cage and Lunatic Runegate shows that she's in charge of the rabbit combat personnel and direct strategy. While she forces While such forces have almost no chance to actually fight, their training is harsh and slacking off evidently earns disciplinary action. Her strictness is described as rooted in her desire to inherit the will of Lady Yakokoto and help the lunar capital. Yorihime's ability's name is unknown, but she can invoke gods, and her power level rivals Reimu's own. During the story, she brings forth everything from obscure deities to famous ones, constantly taking the party by surprise and striking at their weaknesses. Her actions during the manga very quickly became famous as a highlight of the story. Highlight is not the word I'd use. Incidentally, that was even Yorihime's first spell card battle after Maritza suggested they duel according to spell card rules. Her adaptability is shocking, but perhaps the Lunarians already had their own similar rules for duels like those. In Cage and Lunatic Runegate, when Toyohime hears about the spell card rules, she sounds impressed that humans have started sounding like Lunarians. In Fantasy Maiden, whereas Yorihime first appeared in the Eternity arc, where she engaged in fierce combat with Reimu's group when they arrived on the moon. She dominated them the entire way through, only losing the advantage at last when Reimu used natural fantasy nature. As the situation escalated into a very touch-and-go one, she read the letter from Eden, which finally caused both sides to stand down. She's one of the main characters of the Silent Thunder and Blue arc, which takes on a very different form than the original manga. Her long-awaited recruitment came in the final arc. On the request of a yokai who sensed an anomaly in the dream world, she went down against Sokyo. I am the leader of the lunar emissaries and beautiful to the utmost degree. Did she say that? Did she say that? I don't remember her ever saying that. Alright. Drill through the clouds. Dragonfish Drill's theme song. If she's got a drill, then she needs the music to match. That was my thought process, so I made this. I enjoy the upbeat tempos found in anime songs, and the original song's refreshing atmosphere, so that's what I focused on. I particularly enjoy the subtle chord changes between the first half of the A melody and the second half. I quite like Scarlet Rhapsody's theme song also. I do too. If you go full power mode with Iku in front of Tenshi in the rear and blast them with their finishers, you can enjoy Team SWR's full performance by listening to SWR's theme. I highly recommend it. I wish I used Iku more, or had more incentive to use Iku, because this theme is really fucking good. Yomu Yomu Yomu. Half human, half phantom gardener, capable of handling sword techniques, perfect cherry blossom. A Netherworld gardener employed by Ieko Saigyoji. She has a number of other titles too, like bodyguard and swordsmanship instructor, but essentially she will do anything Ieko orders her to. She first appeared in Perfect Cherry Blossom, where she gathered against Sokyo Spring at Yuiko's instruction without really understanding the situation. Single-minded and hard-working, she is extremely loyal to Yuiko and greatly desires to help her. The way she's always led by the nose by her master, who always means more than she says, emphasizes just how much out of her depth she is, giving her the title Half Human, Half Ghost, altogether half-baked, and Phantasmagoria Flower View. I feel like the half-baked title is kind of unwarranted, and used more than it should be. Highly active in Toho Project, she is known to do work other than what's implied by her titles, too. Bohemian Archive of Japanese Red notes that she's been guiding phantoms on and off for over a year now, and the Three Fairies manga shows her admonishing Reimu and the others for treating phantoms as toys, as well as handling odd phantom-shaped jobs related to the thinning of the barrier of life and death. She seems busy beyond compare. When Aya came around to interview her, her work environment complaints were shocking. She received no pay nor any days off, but since she's been serving the Saigyoji family from birth, she doesn't seem to be pushing for an improvement in the situation. She holds more dubious titles as well, especially in her role as swordsmanship instructor for Yuiko. It's rather difficult to imagine her teaching Yuiko like this, or Yuiko training in swordsmanship at all for that matter. With Yuiko seeming to loathe practice and steady learning. Yomu probably holds this title in name only. And even when it comes to her main title of gardener, the actual work she does and her skill at all has not been shown in the slightest. You're not using those two katana to prune the bushes, right, Yomu? The longer of her two katana is called Rokanken, while the shorter is Hakuroken. Her sword skills are masterclass. She can use absurd techniques like moving faster than even Aya can keep track of, or making an opponent feel like time is moving more slowly. Yeah, I hate that. Regardless, she doesn't boast about her abilities, instead choosing to pursue further mastery, saying that honing her sword skills is a way to settle her emotions. Her grandfather, Yoki Konpaku, was the previous gardener and swordsmanship instructor. He eventually entrusted the role to Yomu and went into hiding, so she trains on her own now. Yomu interprets this in a positive way as part of his teachings, but his absence appears to have a great effect on her, with Suika commenting that she doesn't seem to actually understand her instructor's teachings. Incidentally, the Konpaku family consists of half human, half phantoms, and Yomu is no exception. The thing always floating next to her is her phantom half. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Yomu is an extremely earnest character who treats many other characters very politely. After realizing how dangerous the Scarlet Mist was in the Scarlet Arc, she joined up with Rainbow and Marissa. With little experience outside the Netherworld, she frequently assumed the role of question asker in the dialogue, giving her an air of naivety. In the Mystic Arc, she confronted Rainbow's group as an enemy just like the original game, but after learning the danger of the Saigyo Ayakashi... Isn't it Ayakashi? She turned her katana on Yuko instead. She joined back up in the Eternity Arc along with her master Yuko. It isn't so much that she always stays at Yuko's side, however, but more that she seems to have found a place for herself in the party. There is almost nothing Rokanken, honed by a yokai, cannot cut! Choppa! Choppa! Colorless Blade. The theme of Tenshi Hinanai, the noble lady from Bahavagra. The first half of this track is Died in Arrogance, while the second half soars bright amongst the heavens. Both the character and the arrange are full of selfishness. The song's title is Colorless Blade. A sword that matches the temperament of your opponent is just plain cool, right? I want one too. All her mugshots are very cute, and I feel like they gave me a much better sense of her character. Alright. Alright. Yukari. Mastermind behind Spiriting Away, capable of manipulating boundaries. A great yokai with immeasurable power. When people speak of the yokai sage, they mean Yukari. She is deeply intertwined with Gensokyo's history and represents the major players there. Despite her intense presence, she is surprisingly light on her feet, and based on the number of times she's appeared, can be considered a semi-main character. Her first appearance was in Perfect Cherry Blossom's Phantasm stage, and the series had never had another Phantasm stage. The thing most frequently said about her is that she's fishy. She thinks deeply and doesn't say much, and even when she does speak, she's far from straightforward, being difficult to understand or impossible to verify. Moreover, she is unsurpassed in her habit of appearing and disappearing without warning, so it's only natural for people to see her that way. That said, her words are neither harsh nor nasty, and she often speaks with humor or affection. Even Aku describes her as surprisingly talkative. Her ability to manipulate boundaries is extremely powerful, as those boundaries can be anything. Aku calls it the power over logical creation and destruction, and says it's so strong it rivals gods. In the original games, she mainly uses it to create tears in space from moving around in odd ways or pulling crazy things out of. It also allows her to easily move between Gensokyo and the outside world, which has made her well versed in the latter. She uses items from the outside world pretty normally too. It's so that Yukari is the cause behind instances of Spiriting Away, where an outside human or object wanders in against Gensokyo. Yukari is nocturnal and hibernates during the winter. She also leaves minor tasks completely up to her Shikigami Ran. PCB's character setting text file says that she heard from the player defeated Ran, but went back to sleep again and again. Eventually she realized spring had come and was shocked. It's no wonder characters find her fishy. But in the games, she's surprisingly light on her feet, especially taking the initiative to resolve incidents. She's often seen pestering Rainbow because of the Shrine Maiden taking a long time to get started on incidents, as well as lending her direct help in their resolutions. In addition, she's apparently lives on the border against Gensokyo, but no one has ever been seen at her home, so details are unknown. But apart from that, several other things, such as how she lives her life, aren't clear. There are plenty of other characters with unclear homes and lifestyles, but not as much for which you could say it's a mystery. Considering things in that light cast doubt even on settings such as her winter hibernation. As mentioned, Yukari is one of the most influential people in Gensokyo and the most ancient of the yokai. A yokai resembling her even apparently appeared in the Gensokyo Chronicle penned by Hiero no Aichi over 1,200 years ago. She's also a major part of Perfect Memento in strict sense. having a longer entry than any other character. Much of her entry explains her connections to Gensokyo history, which only deepens the yokai connection with the world of Gensokyo itself. In fact, she was deeply related to the yokai expansion project and the Great Barrier disturbance that helped form Gensokyo as it is today. Doubtless, she contributed her abilities to their implementation. Apparently, she also checks the veracity of Gensokyo Chronicles contents. Yukari's love for Gensokyo is deeper than anyone's, and she famously said this about the world. I accept everything in Gensokyo, and that can be a very cruel thing. I thought her line was that Gensokyo accepts all, and that is a very, very cruel thing. That line is very well known, and that line comes from a fucking random win quote from the fighting games. Because of that, whenever something happens that could shake the world's foundation, she displays very powerful emotions that you wouldn't imagine from the way she usually acts. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Yukari knew certain characters, including Rainbow, before the events of the story. This is because she's more well-connected than other yokai and has a deep link to humans. She likely knows Rainbow in particular from when she was appointed as the Hakurei Shrine Maiden, as well as the creation of the spell card rules. She appeared at the beginning of the Eternity arc as an ally. She's not exactly the leader of the whole group, but as the sage of Gensokyo, she does provide valuable advice to Rainbow and the others. Did you really think there were only 1 or 2 barriers? This is the lady who does fuck-ass loads of damage, can use any spirit in the game, and has a base movement of I can't move. Fat fuck. Get furious! Short version. The theme of Scarlet with a Rhapsody of all fantasy. This is actually just a re-recorded version of a song from my album Bridal X Blind, but I adjusted it and included an interlude in the middle. This is an old favorite of mine, so I was very glad to have it included. The special move is entirely unique to Fantasy Maiden Wars, where Tenshi's growth has united the temperaments of not only humans, but yokai too. Yumeko. A Makai maid who appears in Mystic Square, one of the PC-98 games. Servant of Shinki, she fights to drive away the protagonist. Shinki once called her a Makaiden as another strongest class, and she is indeed very powerful. Her strength is famous in Mystic Square, where she throws swords at a shocking speed. She seems to be earnest and confident, given her dignified impression. Yumeko is one of the more popular characters from the old PC-98 games. Is she? I mean, I guess, but, like, look at the list. And she can frequently be seen alongside Shinki in derivative works. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, Shinki's existence is implied early on when her name shows up in one of Alice's letters. So, I don't remember her name showing up. She's always calm and strict, but she cares deeply about Shinki and Alice. I'll deal with her. It won't take a minute, Lady Shinki. Please stand back. Pretty sure her popularity just comes from her association with the popular characters. Home is where one lays their bucket. Kasume's theme song. The original song had a fairly relaxed 3/4 beat, but I tried to make it more childish, more pop, and not very strong feeling. I threw the synths together pretty casually, but they fit in so well that I fell in love with them. As I recall, Kasume's character wasn't very well defined when I was working on this, which was a bit problematic, but as it turns out, she makes a great partner for Yamame. What a relief. Yugi. The spoken of unexplainable phenomenon, capable of wielding unexplainable phenomenon. And only living in the old capital, the yokai is one of the 4 devas, along with Suiko, possessing extreme strength. She first appeared in Stage 3 of Subterranean Animism, where she fights the players as a contest of strength. She wasn't serious about the fight, she just wanted to enjoy herself. Sorry. After the fight, she takes a liking to Rainbow and Marissa for how strong they are and treats them kindly. Once she hears where they came for, she happily leads them to the Palace of Earth Spirits, making her a refreshing character. Yugi is one of the Oni who forsook humans and moved to the underworld, but she stayed behind even after Suiko returned to the surface. According to the character setting text files, she enjoyed her life in the underworld, wreaking havoc and drinking sake every day. Because her screen time in the game is short, we can't say for sure, but Yugi doesn't appear to act towards any sort of goal like Suika, or feel like trying to see others for who they really are. That may be the difference between the Oni who went up to the surface and one who stayed in the underworld. After SA, Symposium of Post-Mysticism included information about her, but even then, she's still almost said she still almost always keeps her distance and stays away from the surface. Nevertheless, it also implies she took a liking to the humans who infiltrated the underground recently, and in Hopeless Masquerade's ending, she can be seen talking to Marissa. Maybe she started to have an interest in the surface. So, another thing that comes later, in the cross review for SA, I'm pretty sure Satori's comment mentions that she secretly Yugi is secretly jealous of Suika's topside antics. To what extent, I'm not sure. But I guess there's really nothing stopping Yugi from coming topside, aside from it being like a big deal if she did. But, you know, she doesn't do a whole lot up top. In the same game, both she and Suika can be seen in the background of the human village. She seems to have come to see the multi-day Danmaku duels. Yugi's ability is literally that she possesses supernatural mystery, incredible strength, deviant rebelliousness, and terrible divinity. This phrase, Kairoku Ranshin, metaphorically refers to things the human mind cannot measure. Basically, that boils it down to having immeasurable strength, which is pretty vague. And double spoilers, she apparently creates heat just by lifting her arm, which perhaps has some connection to it. In fact, the most noteworthy thing about her power is the sheer brute strength she has. Even Suika mentions that she may be stronger in raw power. Aki also states that she heard Yugi can bring down nearby buildings just by stomping. The shallow sake cup she carries is called the Hoshiguma dish, and it's stated to be an Oni masterpiece that can raise the quality of sake poured into it. With that, and the Ibuki gourd, which she can create sake endlessly, the Oni's drinking containers all contain sake brewing methods that are far from trivial. They're practically trade secrets. They pour too much passion into their sake. Yugi first appeared in Fantasy Maiden Wars in the subterranean animism storyline. At the start of the story, she didn't have much of a connection to Satori. She essentially only spoke for the other Oni as their representative. In addition, while she naturally recognized Suika on sight, she was also acquainted with Aya here. In the original game, Aya greets Yugi as if meeting her for the first time. This was done to reflect how Aya was one of the older Tengu, and she could easily have known the Oni before they left the surface. Hey, I like you. We can have some more fun if you want. Let's fight until we drop. Gabagoo. Whoa. Upbeat Spider. Yamame's theme song. For everybody's favorite underground idol, I chose a nylon guitar to match the quirky ways she manages to be both so glum yet so bright. When I turned it in, the staff just said clumsy underground spider idol Yamame-chan and left it at that. What did they mean? Is it really that weird? In-game, Yamame exudes an aura that goes beyond a Stage 1 boss, but that's because adjustments made to Sanbando's insect characters, who are definitely not bugs, apparently, for a wide variety of reasons. That's also why Wriggle's animations are so cool. Fun fact, you can translate this title song as... What does that say? I don't know what that says. I'm pretty sure the last word was Gumo, like spider. Unless that's just like Suchi Gumo, that's how it is. I don't know. Yuka. Flower master of the 4 seasons. Capable of manipulating flowers. Phantasmagoria of Flower View. A yokai who spends the 4 seasons with the flowers. Her first appearance in a Windows game was Phantasmagoria of Flower View, but she appeared in the earlier games as well. During those games, she lived in a house called Mugenkan. Her ceaseless smiling and aloof attitude can make her seem modest and gentle at first. However, she enjoys pushing people's buttons, and she'll mercilessly attack anyone who gets in her way. She's an extremely dangerous, terrifying yokai. While one might think she spends the entire year in a big sunflower field, the Garden of the Sun, POV's character setting text file says that Yuka moves around throughout the year as different flowers bloom, in contrast to her pastoral lifestyle. She possesses a high degree of yokai power and physical ability. Her danger level is very heavily stressed in perfect memento and strict sense, with her affinity for humans being the lowest of all yokai. Still, she will apparently go shopping in the human village like nothing is wrong, making her even more terrifying. She has no interest in normal humans, and yokai never attack people in the human village anyway. But if something happened, a person might find themselves unable to eat solid food for a while. According to Yuka, her trademark parasol is the only flower in Gensokyo that will never wither. This sounds very mystical, but it's not clear whether the parasol is the end result of some flower's transformation, or if it's just a turn of phrase. Amazingly, she can actually block Danmaku with it, as well as keep out ultraviolet rays. The parasol explanation comes from Renosuke, so it seems they may have some connection. She has a sadistic personality, essentially making it a daily habit of tormenting people, including yokai and fairies. The actual act of damaging someone physically or mentally doesn't seem to be what she really enjoys, though. Instead, she seems to revel in the emotions her actions induce, such as anger or fear. As a long-lived yokai who is perhaps not as spry as she used to be, one could say her hobby is understandable. Just called her old. During her conversation with I and POFE, the Tengu says that Yuka might make for a good article, to which Yuka responds that she's at least a few years too early to be acting like the paparazzi around her. Because of that, she didn't appear in Shoot the Bullet or Bohemian Archive in Japanese Red. She's also not in the Grimoire Marissa. Everyone hoped for her to show up in Double Spoilers since it was 4 years after POFE, but in Fantasy Maiden Wars, Yuka brought her backstory from the older games with her. She had a connection to Remilia in the Scarlet Arc, and that she, Ellie, and Kurumi were freeloading at the Scarlet Double Mansion. In the Eternity Arc, it was revealed that she had a connection to the yokai showing up in the dreams too. Right before the last battle in the final arc, Yuka stood poised to take on all against Sokyo. Out of all the characters from Toho Project, she's one you would fight last. In a way, she's the final boss material. While Eiki was the final boss of Phantasmagoria Flower View, Yuka's personality and contrast with Yukari naturally fit her into the role during Fantasy Maiden Wars. Her vivid colors of blooming flowers symbolize life, while their transience symbolizes death. Isn't it mysterious? Yuka is the last boss character that you fight in the game who is an actual Toho character. And yeah, if any character deserves to be a final boss, it's probably this lady. That's why it's nice that they give you a good set of chapters to actually use her. When you get her right at the end. Resounding wailing in the hidden heart. Theme of Parsi Mizuhashi, the jealous bridge princess who resides in the depths of the earth. Don't ask me how it happened, but her Sambando version seems to be a very sensitive girl, so I took this arrangement very seriously. Very seriously. I kept it simple with the strings and piano and tried to make the chorus as melodious as I could. The arrangement and the jealousy are both quite quietly burning hot. As an aside, I debuted this to the other members here on a certain Valentine's Day. I dared to shout aloud my feelings then and there on that day where the power of jealousy is at its peak. Nothing could be more enviable. Yuyuko. Ghost of flawless, immaculate beauty. Capable of manipulating death. A ghost who lives in Hakugokuro in the Netherworld. Since she can take control over Phantom, she was appointed by the Yama to manage them. In return, she is permitted to remain in the Netherworld indefinitely. Whimsical and hard to pin down, she often appears thoughtless, but sometimes reveals insight as if she sees right through everything. In Perfect Cherry Blossom, she caused the Spring Snow incident by gathering against Sokyo Spring in order to revive the Fujimi girl, sealing the Saigyo Ayakashi, whom she had taken an interest in. She's been a ghost for over 1,000 years, and she no longer remembers how long she's been in the Netherworld. In fact, she can't even remember her life before she died. Again, her personality is hard to figure out, and she keeps her true intentions even closer to her vest than Yukari does. It's not even clear how many of the things she says in everyday conversation are serious. She befuddles not only Yomu, but even Ron. She frequently takes interest in things only to tire them out before long, but it's less that she's easily enthused or sobered, and more that her tastes are constantly drifting along the wind. To take a moment there, in case you didn't know, Yukari and Yuyuko knew each other before Yomu existed, and before Yukari had Ron as a Shikigami. We know this because Yuyuko was part of the first Lunar War, kind of, where Yukari invaded the moon and got her ass kicked, but that was before Ron's time. Ron became Yukari's Shikigami after the first Lunar War, but Yuyuko had information about that war. So that's kind of neat to think that this is kind of like Yukari's first real acquaintance, associate, friend. Even outpaces Ron. And even Ron can't understand her. This chick's confusing. Surprisingly, she prefers to take action rather than watch, which she shows in her actions during incidents and such. She frequently shows her mysteriously sharp insights in such instances. Especially in Scarlet Rhapsody, where she traces the root of the issue to Tenshi pretty quickly. She also makes an out-of-place appearance in 10 Desires, giving the player something akin to advice. Perfect Memento in Strict Sense explains her ability to control death is just that. She can literally kill people without resistance. Her power, which simply kills without question, is known as one of the biggest cheat abilities among all of Toho characters. Unlike her personality, it's extremely easy to understand and very practical. Still, it has a clear weakness in that it doesn't work on Undai and Hodaians. In derivative works, she's been made into a hungry glutton, which comes from how she broaches the topic of food several times during a perishable night. With Misty in particular, she comments how she doesn't like sparrows because of all the little bones in them. After winning, she makes a remark as if she actually ate her. The food connection is only made stronger in Scarlet with a Rhapsody, when she associates the envoy of the Dragon Palace with broiled eel. While Yuko never ultimately realizes this, the Fujimi girl sealing the Saigyo Akashi is actually Yuko's former living self. Ignorant of her ability to control death, she committed suicide, and others used her remains to seal the Saigyo Akashi. As a ghost, Yuko is extremely rare in that she's been alive, or dead, for over a millennium, and the reason is that her own remains function as the sealing barrier on the tree. Should the seal be lifted, time will start to flow for her again, which will lead to her passing into nothingness. Her first attempt to try and resurrect the dead person would have ironically meant killing herself, but it failed. According to the character setting text file of PCB, Yuko can only manipulate death and nothing more. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, she is naturally the mastermind behind the Spring Snow incident. She joined as an ally in the Eternity arc, comes off as a worldly sort, but doesn't actually have much experience outside the Netherworld. The things that she sees and hears outside have a noticeable effect on her. Not long now, soon the Saigyo Akashi will be in full bloom. Why do you keep calling it that? Yeah. That pink marshmallow? Snake! Watch out! A single Oni is as strong as 1,000. No help needed. The theme of one of the 4 Devas, Yugi the Strong. If Suika is the type to drown you in sheer numbers, then Yugi's the type to bring her mighty self to bear against an army of thousands. I try to portray the power and composure of being such a solitary being while mixing in a bit of that old-fashioned moxie. She'll knock you out in 3 steps. Zenki. A Shikigami belonging to Yukari. For more on Shikigami, see its separate entry. Zenki appears in the form of a crow during Silence Thunder and Blue, but the bird is merely a medium. Zenki appears to refer to the Shinigami software itself. In accordance with the above depiction, Zenki appeared in Fantasy Maiden Wars as a crow as well. Its main attack, Emery Horn, fires a horn produced from its body, setting it apart from normal crow yokai. In the Eternity arc, Rama sees Shikigami protection Zenki Goki, which will later use Shikigami as well. Word. Alright, chat. The Eye Line. Satori's theme song. The Momiji sisters are 2 of my favorite characters, and I put a lot of energy into this track, but it was still quite the struggle. Even by Toho standards, the song has quite the unique atmosphere. I enjoy trying to capture that feeling through the arrangement process. I love playing it on the piano alone at night. So we have gotten through all the name characters. And now we have all of the Fantasy Maiden Wars. We have all the Fantasy Maiden Wars enemy. Question mark. A Kadama pretending to be a black sheep. For more details, see entry for black sheep. When attacking Utsu in the final chapter of the Eternity arc, it took this form. It was unable to make use of its vaunted fleece, nor did it have the special ability Wool Guard. Its proud horns were hidden as well, so it couldn't use its main weapon, Thundering Ram. It attacks using Hypnosis Beam instead, which it showed during the main story of the Eternity arc. Good dog! (102) Answered Love. The Momiji Heartbreakers theme. I felt that neither of the characters' themes really fit the vibes of this attack, so I decided to compose something special for it. Since the animation has Koichi attack, then Satori, so too does the track play Hartman's Yokai Girl, then Satori Maiden. The outro mixes an Infinite Nightmare from Double Spoiler. The song title is a pun on Unanswered Love, one of Koichi's moves in Hopeless Masquerade. By the way, isn't it kind of messed up how immediately after you recruit them, Yumiko is double acting and throwing out 4 consecutive attacks, completely negating Mind Reader's main effect? You know, you're right! That is fucked up! How could you do that? Bat. Any creature belonging to the order Cheetoptera. That's just the outside world explanation, though. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, they are dangerous wild creatures that shoot Danmaku. They also show up as familiars Flandre can summon. They look much meaner than regular bats, too. In the Scarlet Arc, they were the targets of a game of Bat Busters, and said game seemed to be alive and well even now. Their main method of attack is to open their unhinged mouths and fire Devil Bat lasers out of them. Since they're size S, they have high evasive capabilities. Do you think the massive mouth thing was, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure a Dragon Quest enemy is the main motif for it, but whenever I see the big mouth, I think Golbat. But I'm pretty sure Golbat is heavily inspired by an enemy from Dragon Quest. Jajan Rock! Orin's theme song. It's pretty rare to get a cheerful song in a major key from our Lord and Savior, so I lead into it and made the song relentlessly cheerful. I believe Jajan is what she says when she appears, like when she goes from cat to human form. I'm pretty sure it's translated in English patches as like tada, because that's what Jajan kind of is, but that's like a catchphrase for her. My image of Orin is her flashing a wonderful smile to cheerful music while delivering ominous lines and employing gruesome techniques. That gap is quite charming, I'd say. It's a bit of an unusual tone for a battle theme, so I drew inspiration from a variety of songs. The piano parts are challenging but still doable, and they're fun to play casually. I hit the wrong button. B! An insect corresponding to wasp, specifically the family Vespidae and subfamily Vespinae. What about the sub-subfamily Sunai? Unlike the one that appears as enemy units in the Mystic Arc, these appear out of Wriggle's control. Their name comes from Medicine's first charge attack, Poison Bee, but there's no special relation there. One of the few units the size SS in the game, Poison Bees have high evasion and highly effective, albeit short-range Danmaku. On hard difficulty and higher, they also have special skill double action. Oh, really? Making them a more annoying enemy than they first appear. The reason that there are so many bug-related graphics is because there's a staff member who really loves bugs. Because of that, while they only appear as enemy units in the Eternity Arc in one stage, they also show up in the battle animation for Night Bug Storm. To go even further, there are more than just wasps in Night Bug Storm. Also feature Onyama, or Seabold dragonflies, rhinoceros beetles, and stag beetles. The same staff member was responsible for those choices, was also concerned over things like dragonflies having low attack power and intimidation factor, or beetles not being good at hovering in the air, and so on and so forth. In the end, we settled on the depiction, balancing those concerns with coolness. Rhinoceros beetles and stag beetles may seem popular with little boys, but the ones that show up in the animation look horrifying. Please give them a good look. Be me, me be. Sky Gazer. Oku's theme song. Song based on Oku's pure heart and simple mind. It's got a completely different vibe from the original, but I think it embodies her bottomless optimism. The intro borrows a phrase from Nuclear Fusion to foreshadow her future endeavors. I base the song's name on a glimpse of the future sky. That's the name of the stage where it first plays. It contrasts the player's forces who gaze at the moon while Utsu gazing at the sky. Big Doofy Ghost. Canon fodder characters that appeared in the PC-98 game. Stage 1 of Story Beast in Wonderland mentioned that Rika created them, but the details are unknown. In Fantasy Maiden Wars, they're bigger versions of Doofy Ghost that only appeared in Makai. According to Eden, the miasma was responsible for their enlargement. They use their size to attack, splitting into smaller Doofy Ghosts to lick you all over with Multiplied Tongue Festival and ram themselves into you with Doofy Dance. Be careful with the latter, it's a map attack, and on normal plus difficulty and higher, they'll use it all the time. Oh. Well, that's annoying. The Crow Who Swallowed the Sun. Oku's second theme. Now this is the Utsu experience. Powerful and loud with 3 guitars wailing away and an organ sprinkled throughout. It's a long track, but I made sure to throw in some subtle shifts to keep it from getting too repetitive. Black Kadama. An original character appearing in Fantasy Maiden Wars. A Kadama that has turned black. The Kadama and Toho Project are white, so for convenience this is considered a Sanbando original. The Sun That Fell to Earth. Oku Round 2, first half. As this battle has little to do with Oku's own intentions, it's naturally become quite cinematic. Chapter 55, where this song plays, has a pretty different tone from anything you've experienced up till now. For a game that, I think, generally sticks pretty close to your typical fan works, I was worried this unique direction might be a bit off-putting to some players. Ultimately, though, I think it serves to convey the atmosphere we wanted to portray, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Black Sheep. Familiars employed by Miko. When Miko revealed her true form, their mimicry ended and they reverted to their original states. Below is the description when it appears as the representative game original grunt unit. Shaggy and horned, they resemble sheep. They're commonly referred to as a sheep yokai for convenience, but since they're just familiars created from Miko's yokai power, they're not technically an animal yokai, but normal yokai. Their special ability, Count Sheep, reflects Miko's abilities, which is the source of their power. You can suppress it can suppress your unit's power level, so you have to stay sharp, or else you'll be easy prey for Miko's Danmaku effect. Wake up by using Rouse or Rally. They mainly attack with their Thundering Ram, which fires the electricity accumulated in their wool. Compared to Miko's weapon of the same name, this one is a downgrade, but its range is still somewhat long. It also reduces damage with Wool Guard, so use Fury or weapons that penetrate barriers. And then will. Oku Round 2, second half. As the scene shifts from facing down a tremendous threat to a battle to save Oku, the background music also needed a change. Picking Lullaby of a Deserted Hell for the job came down to my personal preference. While the map theme, the first half's theme, and this theme all have similar instrumentation, I aim to give each one a different atmosphere. One tense, one grandiose, and one serene. I hope this sequential approach served the story well. The name of the song comes from Orin's dialogue. Palace of Earth Spirit's crew are all people who will change from now on. But there's even more people than just them. Yamame considers the future of underground surface relations as she watches wriggle. Eren and Kaguya begin to live as full-fledged citizens of the surface. Vermilion and Flan start to patch up their relationship. You could say that the Eternity chapter is all about how people will live from now on. You got to include Moko in that as well. Moko and Kane is important for that one. With all that in mind, I picked this title in the hopes that everyone will overcome this battle and take hold of their futures. Doofy Ghost. Canon fodder story. Characters that appeared in PC98 games. Stage 1 story is one of the mentioned. Created them, details are unknown. One of the few small fry enemies actually have an official name for. The older games all called them Doofy Ghosts. The Japanese reads Bake Bake, which is ghost twice. Their main weapon is tongue. A staff member recorded and edited their own voice for the lick sound effect. You know, I don't think I needed to know that. I think that information was best left to the dogs. Paranoia step! Koishi's theme song. Koishi's unstable and eccentric character was already well represented in the original track, so I just kept that as it was. As exemplified by the 7/8 time signature, among other things. The key to this song is flux, so I added some subtle distortion to the synth guitars. Upon reviewing, I think I added a nice accent to the whole thing. Dreamlight. The power of dreams made manifest. Makoto uses her ability to employ these as her familiars. During the final part of the game, it's like you're up against abstract enemies made of light and stuff. Arc of the Spring Sky. The Pelican Ship's theme song. The song was inspired by the scene of the ship rising to the surface in Chapter 35. I envisioned heroic trumpets accompanying it as it soars into the spring sky. Because, like, you know, it's a battleship. Battleship transportation. Safe harbor for weakened units. Forward-facing laser barrages. And when it gets shot down, you game over. Now that is what I'm talking about. Do you all have a favorite battleship too? The big old boat. Power of dreams made manifest. Makura uses her ability to employ these as familiars. These ones appear in large numbers during Dream Eater's Sweet Dreams during the final part of the game. Again, it's like you're up against abstract enemies made of light and stuff. I love that stuff part. A simple but unrustable family. The theme of Nazareth, UFO's tiny, tiny assassin. Minuscule, microscopic, smaller than an amoeba. I originally made this song from my old website and updated it slightly for use in Fantasy Maiden Wars. Said website is no longer available. If you happen to still have the original, then it might be cool if you kept it around as the song's prototype. Anyway, this arrange can be roughly divided into 3 parts. A part for her clever commanding, a fairy tale part made of dreams and magic, and a part that'll kill the crud out of you if you underestimate her. I won't bother listening to timestamp, but I really like the pastoral accordion part bridging 2 and 3, so I got a strong attachment to this song. Ratcore. Evil Eye. A cannon fodder character appearing in games before Mystic Square. They weren't always specifically called Evil Eyes. People started calling them that after Story of East and Wonderland when Rika showed up in a tank called Evil Eye Sigma. So that's an interesting way to phrase that. They weren't always specifically called Evil Eyes. But people started calling them that after in Story of Eastern Wonderland when Rika showed up in a tank called Evil Eye Sigma. Do you know all these things happen in the same game, right? Like, granted, doing the extra stage in Toho 2 requires you to beat all 3 shot types. And nobody want to fucking do that, even one. But I like the way this is worded. It's like, they didn't know these guys' names, but then they saw that Rika was driving Evil Eye Sigma. Like, Evil Eye Sigma's in the same fucking game, my guy. It's in the same game. Alright. My greatest treasure. Theme of Nazarene equipped with the pagoda. For Nazarene's first theme, I emphasized her speed and mischievousness, but for the second arrangement, I brought out her hidden feelings. Make her seem like a cool, serious protagonist as we head towards the final stages. I like how Fantasy Maiden Wars Nazarene exudes this compassionate heroicism, but she can't keep hidden despite her size. Her personal skills, particularly Rat Bite, are really useful, so give her a go if you got the spare cost. I love Rat! Evil Eye R. A cannon fodder character appearing in Fantasy Maiden Wars. Evil Eye R is a variation of the Evil Eye. The details surrounding their birth is unclear, but one can assume that Evil Eyes let loose against Sokyo achieved independent evolution and perhaps came from an entire world entirely. The unique Danmaku blocks allies' path, but despite their high HP, they have low armor, so you can quickly clear them out. Using the Spirit Pressure is one efficient way of doing so. Pressure blocks Danmaku being put up, but it costs a lot when you can just fucking kill them anyway. Change expression. Alright, chat. So we're gonna finish this. Alright? We're gonna finish this. We will come back. Next time, we're gonna go through the rest of the characters. Okay? And with extra time we have, we'll peek at the glossary. I don't know if I'm gonna do the whole glossary. I kinda want to, because I think that'd be cool. I'll think about it. Because we're also going through the music as well. But we are now officially done with all the main characters. So now it's going to be, we're going to be doing information on the specifics of this game from this point onward. Which I'm fine with because I like this game. But there you go. Reading for 6 hours, streamer. Yep, that's my education right there. Using all my brain power. Next Friday, be here to read about characters you don't care about because they're barely more than cannon fodder. How exciting. I've been waiting for this. Me too, chat member. Me too.